For more on this, I'm joined by our foreign affairs editor, Philip Turle. Philip, are risks growing that regional powers may attempt to intervene to support each of these warring parties?
Well, if you look at the New York Times this weekend, there's a phrase in there which sums it all up. And it says, Sudan has been up for grabs for years. And that's what all these regional powers are keeping their eyes on, because now they're in a situation in Sudan where there is no government, where there is a war taking place, fighting between two rival sides. And that's weakening the whole structure of the country. So you have all these neighbors around Sudan which are keeping a close eye on what is going on there. And depending on what their interests are, they are supporting one or other of the two warring sides. So we can start with Egypt. And General al-Sisi of Egypt is supporting the country's military ruler in Sudan, General al-Burhan, basically because the two men went to the same military school. They're both military rulers. And what General Sisi doesn't want is a militia running Sudan in the south. And it even clashes with Sudanese forces, between Sudanese forces and Egyptian forces in the north of Sudan, are being blamed for the current state of the country and the increased clashes between those two generals. So Egypt definitely on the side of General Burhan. Then you have, for example, you have the United Arab Emirates, which is keeping a close eye on Sudan because it sees it as a country that's potentially lucrative for its agricultural purposes of providing the United Arab Emirates with more food supplies in the future, for example, if it can exploit the situation going on at the moment to make it more interesting as far as agriculture is concerned, to allay their food worries in the United Arab Emirates. Then next to that, you have Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is worried that if the situation is to get even worse in Sudan, then there will be many migrants trying to flee across the sea to Saudi Arabia. The two countries have a very long sea border with each other. So they are, therefore, their worst case scenario is that Sudan falls into a situation of no governments at all and an interior civil war. And then you also have Libya and Egypt. And Libya has been providing aid. General Khalifa, the Libyan warlord, has been providing aid to General Hamdan. It's believed that he gave information to General Hamdan ahead of these latest clashes, telling him how to organize that and what was the right time to start these clashes were concerned. So there's a lot of worry that also Libya could get involved in the situation in Sudan, and that also is a very worrying development on the international front when so many countries are trying to pull their nationals out of the country right now.
Philip, you mentioned the agriculture in Sudan. It really is awash with natural resources, isn't it?
And that is, I think, the crux of the matter here, Jeannie, is that we see a country that is practically without governance at the moment, which is in a very dangerous situation with all these neighbors looking at it saying, well, there's a lot of very rich natural resources in Sudan that we could get hold of, notably gold, uranium, chromite, gypsum, mica, marble, and iron ore. All of those are important when it comes to extracting those natural minerals. On the international front, they can be used for all sorts of things like fertilizers, used in mobile phones. They can be used for making plaster in spare car parts. We don't even need to talk about the value of gold. So all of these are very important when it comes to extracting them, and they are underdeveloped in Sudan. So that, coupled with the idea that the country could be extremely useful when it comes to its agricultural reserves and providing food aid to other neighboring countries, is also very important. So all of these elements together have made it pretty clear to the two warring sides that for the moment they have more to win on the battlefield than they do getting around the negotiating table. And I think that is a very worrying development. And the pulling out of diplomatic staff from Sudan is also fueling the feeling, I think, amongst the warring factions that they have no excuses being put on them to stop the fighting. They can carry on fighting because the international community is pulling its troops and its personnel out of the country, leaving really the civilian population at the mercy of these two warring factions.
All right, Philip, thank you for that. France 24's Philip Turle.